Ja, hallo, guten Abend. Wir haben die große Freude und Ehre, jetzt ein kleines Gespräch zu führen mit John Shipton, dem Vater von Julian Assange. John, nice to meet you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Yesterday there was an event at the Brandenburg Gate with the sculpture of the Italian artist, of Julian, of Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning. And in the evening we had a big event at the Bundestag. And what was your impression of this event yesterday?
The first event at the gate, the sculpture had Julian and Chelsea and Edward standing on chairs, and alongside it, it has another chair. And if you wish to stand up, as they have stood up, you can stand on the chair yourself.
For me, this sculpture is perfect because the fourth chair, every one of us, of journalists, of publicists, could stand there.
Yeah, on the chair.
And Niels Melzer, the UN guy, he said, I want to stand on this chair when he talked.
Niels is a great human rights investigator for the United Nations, a man of impeccable standing. He's rather similar to Julian, yeah. And it's a good place for him to stand on that chair. And then the event at the Bundestag, it was extremely good. So it was put on by Savin from the De Link, and Heike from De Link. Heike comes from Cologne. Many speakers, and they all spoke well. It was a full house. There were two panels, one in the afternoon and one in the evening, and finished about 9 o'clock. But strong, well-rounded, exacting defence of Julian, exacting defence of the free press, exacting expectation on the nations of Europe and the European community to defend Europe against the imposition of judicial kidnappings by the United States. So it was quite strong.
You were at the Belmarsh prison 2 days before. How is Julian doing, and what is your impression there at the prison?
Well, it is, as you would expect, dire. Julian's situation is dire. The results of 9 years of ceaseless prosecutorial persecution of Julian, the inclusion of complete surveillance of every single element of Julian's life, every single element, in the toilet, in the shower, with the medicine, with doctors examining him, with confidential briefings from lawyers, all of it recorded, all of it sent to the United States and Spain and Ecuador. This, and also with every day a new smear, and each morning you're greeted by yet another prosecutorial distortion of laws or procedure, or abrogation of human rights, or the abrogation by Sweden and the United Kingdom, the complete abrogation of international laws. Not one obeyed in relation to Julian.
There is a case in Spain because of this company which did all the stuff in the Ecuadorian embassy and gave it to the United States. There is a kind of court case now in Spain.
Yes.
Do you know how this is proceeding, or is this going on? Because if the talks between a lawyer and the client, which are confidential, if this is snooped out, then in no case, if we live in a state of law and of justice, you can do a court case then anymore, because this is taboo.
Yes, it's hard to see how the Crown Prosecuting Service can continue with its persecution of Julian. Every time you pick up a newspaper or listen or read on the internet, there's another law broken. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention brought out their report a couple of years ago saying that Julian was arbitrarily detained and ought to be paid compensation and given freedom. They brought out another report in February this year, which said the same thing, only in much firmer language, that Julian must be freed and paid compensation.
Yeah.
We expect Sweden to pay that compensation to Julian for those years of persecutions. We also expect that the Swedish government move to remove from power those prosecutors who continued with this illegal persecution of Julian against their own laws. They moved to continue their persecution. Julian fought 2 court cases to cause the Swedish prosecutors to further the case. He didn't avoid anything. He fought to have it heard.
Yeah. When I saw how this worked before Julian went to the embassy, there was these court cases in the UK where Julian's attorneys from the beginning said, this is not okay, what Sweden is doing here, because it's only signed by a prosecutor. It has to be signed by a judicial authority.
Yes.
A judge has to look on the case and then that, okay, we want to extradite him. And the British courts, up to the Supreme Court, they broke the law. They said in the end that they said to Julian's attorneys, oh yes, you are right, judicial authority has to be, but if we take the French translation, then prosecutors are included. This has nothing to do with the state of law or with justice anymore. And this was the only reason Julian had to flee to the embassy, because you could see this has nothing to do with the law case. This is a political case. They want to get me.
Yeah, it's always been a political case. It was very amusing to see Lord Phillips adjudicating on the French translation in England.
Yeah, it's absurd.
And the United Kingdom Parliament had passed the law based upon the English, not on the French.
And the week after this Supreme Court decision was done, and Julian was sitting in the embassy of Ecuador, they changed the law, and they in the UK and said it has always to be a judge, not only a prosecutor. So you can see from day one in this that this has nothing to do with the regular state of law.
You may have seen Julian in court a couple of weeks ago where he couldn't remember his name.
Yeah.
And had difficulty bringing his birth date to mind.
Yeah.
He had, before that, been strip searched and then put in a hot box, and what the prisoners call a hot box.
Yeah.
And then taken to appear in court. So he was completely confused and didn't know what's going on in a hot box, a strip search, what's happening.
Yeah.
The barristers in Australia who have done work with criminal law all their lives, so see people in distressed circumstances, wrote to the Prime Minister, 10 of them, saying that they never, in their long life, 50 years of appearing at the bar, they had never seen a judge allow a person in that condition to stand and plead. Never.
Yeah.
So normally you would be taken and asked if you have a problem or caused to settle down. And but no, the English Judge Baritza ignored it. She was satisfied that her prisoner, Julian, she was satisfied that he couldn't remember his name and was confused as to where he was.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. now in Britain there is also a lot of support for WikiLeaks and Julian from alternative circles, but not by the big parties and not by the government.
Jeremy Corbyn made a strong, direct statement that Julian ought not to be extradited. Diane Abbott made a strong comment, even stronger than Corbyn's, that Julian should be released and not extradited. So the head of the Labour Party and his senior shadow minister, support the end of the persecution of Julian and his freedom.
So you see some slight chance that, the Great Britain, great chaos with Brexit and with Johnson and with all this stuff in the last month or years, and they will have an election quite soon.
Well, better to say when Labour gets in, we expect things will change.
Yeah. And for you, as a father, this is a fight, David against Goliath. Julian has started to fight the most powerful institution of the world, the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex. When he started with WikiLeaks, did you expect that it is so dangerous what he is doing?
When you're driving to Berlin, you don't think about going to Leipzig, do you? You just think about going to Berlin. Mm-hmm. So Julian had in his mind, I assume, that he was going to do this thing, start WikiLeaks and do the coding for a secure Dropbox.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was on his mind. For myself, I didn't worry about his safety at all until Sweden. Mm-hmm. After that, I was concerned. Yeah.
One can see, I think, how revolutionary this small idea, WikiLeaks, doing a secure box for whistleblowers to drop their stuff, and we do publish it. This is a revolutionary idea, and I think if you didn't fear anything at the beginning, Julian didn't too.
No, he didn't.
But now we see, if we see like the US is reacting, and they tried it for years, even under the Obama administration, they tried to do it, but the Obama attorneys, they said, if we charge WikiLeaks, we have to charge the New York Times too.
Yes.
And yesterday in the hearing was very interesting.
They pointed that out, yes.
He pointed that out, and he said, yes, there was a problem with the WikiLeaks server, and so the stuff went on the Spiegel and New York Times and Guardian servers before.
First. And where are they? They're home drinking wine.
Take me to prison.
But it's always good to keep in mind that what WikiLeaks actually exposed was tremendous crimes. We've got to keep that in mind. Crimes, war crimes. Millions of people displaced and a million dead. I mean, and we say a million dead is just a figure, but these are like you and I. They have children, they have mum and dad and brothers, sisters. And it doesn't stop. Now they've destroyed Ukraine. It's your neighbour in Germany. It's now institutionally a rubbish heap. Just one oligarch after the other. Now they take it in turns of stealing. There's very little. Now all Ukraine has got left is its soil, and it's selling the soil.
Yeah. It's
these are crimes which WikiLeaks reported accurately. So if we keep this in mind, we'll be able to generate within ourselves the energy and the support that Wikileaks and Julian and other publishers like yourself need. If we keep in mind that these are great crimes against humanity and work towards that those who have suffered under these crimes, who have dead children and mothers and fathers, if we work towards alleviating their suffering and bringing justice to them, this is a great duty, and I think we ought to take it up.
Edward Snowden said it quite well. If publishing of crime is a crime itself, then we are governed by criminals. So the empire is trying to hide all these crimes on humanity, all the war crimes, and this is what Julian did. He showed it to everyone and to all the world what the US is doing with their wars. And they don't want that anyone knows about it. Nobody was ever prosecuted from the collateral damage shootings. No. But Julian is sitting in a supermax high security prison. This is the situation we are in.
If I could add to what you said, then you often in the past saw American officials interviewed, those officials that are in charge, generals and politicians, in charge of the destruction and murder of many, many people. You see them interviewed and they say about Julian, he endangered lives. And they administer the destruction of country after country. It's beyond grotesque.
I think in 2013, the Pentagon itself, they checked. There was always this smear, oh yes, Assange has blood on his hands and stuff like that, bringing people in danger. And then the Pentagon did an investigation on this, and a judge from the Obama administration said, hey, have a look.
Yes, no
who has come to death? Who has been injured by publications of WikiLeaks? And they found nothing. Nobody.
Nothing.
And this is not a case Julian Assange only. This is a case all journalists. This is the fourth chair at the sculpture.
I agree. It's the fourth chair is empty. Can go. All of us can go and stand on it.
Every journalist who's doing his job could stand there if he is publishing something on the crimes of the United States, and this is the reason why they're so keen to get Julian and to get him into prison for 175 years.
Did I mention that WikiLeaks is a European publication? The staff are Europeans. The technicians are Berliners. It was first registered in France.
Yeah.
The first court case was in France, and WikiLeaks won that one. Julian has a European family. The publishers are European, the businesses are European. What is actually happening is the intimidation of publishing in Europe. And Europe and the EU together are strong enough to resist the United States. If they are together on this, they are strong. My feeling from travelling around Europe, with Italy and Switzerland, Oslo, Paris, Berlin, Stockholm, the support is there. If the parliamentarians and the bureaucrats can recognise it and utilise it, the support is there. Nobody wants Europe to be weak in the face of the United States' insistence that they stop publishing this, or that an executive of Siemens is judicially kidnapped by the United States because Siemens has made a discovery in 5G, as happened to the Hawaii chief executive officer, was judicially kidnapped in Canada because Hawaii has very, very secret information on how to operate a 5G network. You don't want citizens like Victor Boot judicially kidnapped, and now he's serving 28 years in the United States prison. So there's enough strength here in Europe to say no. You don't need to go to war over this. This is not, but you just need there's plenty of strength. 600 million people, world's largest economy, plenty of strength to say simply no.
Yeah, hopefully this will work. How is Julian? What does he expect? Can you say something?
Well, when I go back, I report to Julian what happened. That he mostly likes not things that are going to worry him, because he's got enough worry.
You bring the good news.
So I say Berlin is strong. The friends, the Wikileaks friends, they're all still here. I'll go and see some at Sea Base tonight. Have a meal with them. They're all here. They're all strong. The Berliners are strong. The news organizations here, Der Spiegel, it's no lightweight, I tell you.
No. He did an interview with you.
Deutsche Welle is not a lightweight. And another television station here. They also did an hour with me. So it's strong. And it's growing, and it's in us. It's in the people. It's not Angela Merkel is not saying, well, this is what we are saying wherever we hold meetings, that we don't want this to go ahead. And the one thing, though, that they're frightened of, they pretend not to be frightened, but what they manage carefully is the feelings of the people. If it arises enough as a historical phenomenon, they change their mind very quick.
And that's what we are saying at our channel. We featured his case all the time since April. And at the end of the segment, we always say, and by the way, Peace Nobel Prize for Julian Assange.
Yes.
Did you hear about this, the Irish lady, which...
Yes, Mayreed Maguire. So Mayreed has nominated Julian 8 times. This is the 9th time, I think. So Mayreed will this year nominate Julian, Chelsea and Edward. All in 3 for the Nobel Prize, and we'll take the sculpture if the Oslo Town Council give us somewhere to put it. We'll take the sculpture from the gate, from Brandenburg Gate, over to Oslo, and we'll have a party or something like that, a manifestation, and we'll put the nomination in, and insist that the Nobel Peace Prize Committee stop giving the Nobel Peace Prize to war criminals and give it to people who are bringing peace.
That would be an end of this terrible case, which we would appreciate, I think. And I think, too, that Julian and also Chelsea, she's treated like a criminal.
I think Chelsea's a saint. That's the only model I can use. What do you use? You can't say a good person, because beyond a good person. Sometimes I'm good, But to experience 7 years, and she had 3 years of no-touch torture. And then the difficulty of changing her orientation. And then to have to go back to jail and be bankrupted, not to falsely testify against Julian,
Yeah.
They want false testimony.
False testament at a secret court, not at a public court.
No, in a secret court. False testimony in a secret court. And
to get something to charge Julian with, because they only have this espionage.
Rubbish, yeah. Well, I don't want to say rubbish, but that.
But it is. It is. Yeah. And same thing with Edward Snowden. He's
in exile. Yes.
He's in Russia on the mercy of Putin.
Yes.
But he said, I would go back to the U.S. if I get a public court case. But they want no. You will get a secret military court, and this Edward will not do, and so he stays in Russia, and he's a good candidate with Julian and with Chelsea for the Nobel Peace Prize.
I'd like to see Germany offer asylum for Julian, and I'd like to visit Julian in Berlin because it's a natural home, for the Computer Chaos Club and so on.
I wrote it in my little book. Julian and Edward and Chelsea, they have become our security guards for privacy and security of data. This would be a great job. They are experts on this. But with Angela Merkel and her coalition, I don't see a chance for this at the moment. But maybe.
Well, Germany is a big and powerful country. It would be ideally placed to protect and offer asylum to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But look at the boycott of Iran and the Trump's policy against the nuclear deal.
Yeah.
Then the Germans and the French, they said, okay, we will do something that we can make business with Iran. They can do if they want. So they could do a lot for Julian, for Wikileaks, and for the freedom of the press in general, if they like to do it.
And it would, like the trade with Iran under the JCPOA, it would bring in money. It's not going to cost you money. It's going to make money because there'll be flourishing of the printing and intellectual and digital.
Yeah. So I think we have to communicate that this case, as I said, it has nothing to do with your political stand or with your party or if you are right or left winger or whatever. It has to do with democracy and freedom of the press, and that's what we are fighting for.
There's just to give you some idea of the depth, there's a cross-party group in Greece. They want to give Julian some sort of citizenship. They have two-tier citizenship.
Okay.
There's a cross-party group, about 40 House of Representatives, lower house in Spain. They want to offer. There's a group of members of the European Parliament. They've formed a group. There's the Geneva canton, the most powerful canton in the Swiss Federation, has voted to offer Julian asylum. There's a cross-party group in Germany, as you know. There's a cross-party group in Australia that's doing some very fine work. So we're not without friends.
No. I, for myself, have a little more hope that this will work out and that Julian will be free and will get asylum in one country. For me, Germany would be number one for him. And that we sometime, not so far away, may sit together with him to try to do what journalism has to do.
And it would be good if we could get Julian a professorship for the first couple of years, so he
For
can,
example?
yes, teach here or in Leipzig, or Brand, the good universities here, best in the world. So.
Yeah. I think you are doing a great fight, and Julian has not to be afraid so much because he has a strong daddy and he's a strong guy too. So I hope that you will be successful.
Thank you.
I thank you very much for your time. And I hope next time when you come to Berlin, we will meet again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure
Thanks,
to
John.
talk. Thank you very much.